Are you thinking to automate the deployment of your infrastructure on AWS using automation and at the same time make use of services like S3, CloudFront, EBS? If yes, then in this video, I'm going to show you how can you achieve this. Let's get started. If you want to follow along with me, the main prerequisite would be that you have created a AWS CLI account to give programmatic access. You have installed Terraform on your system. And at the last point, I'm going to write the code in Visual Studio. This is again optional. You can write your code in any editor. That's fine. So first, let's have a look at the business requirement. The developers are writing their codes in a central repository, which needs to be published on your web server. And the users of this specific application are from all over the world. And at the same time, we need to make sure that latency is less for all users who are trying to access from various regions. And if the web server goes down, we need to make sure that the data is not lost. For example, when we install Linux operating system, by default, AWS will be providing only single hard disk on top of which you are going to install your OS. And if for some reason the VM goes down, then all your data which is stored in that specific hard disk is also gone. So we will see how we can resolve or meet all these business requirements. To get started, let us see the solutions which we have used to meet this requirement. First is S3. Amazon Simple Storage Service is an object storage service. It offers scalability, data availability, and at the same time gives you the best performance. It is designed for 99.119% percentage of data durability. Why? Because it automatically stores copies of all your S3 objects, whatever you are trying to upload. It makes multiple copies. And it gives you a flexibility to store the data based on your requirement. It gives different storage classes. And at the same time, it gives you a security from unauthorized access as well. Gives you encryption features. So this was S3. We are going to use S3 to host our static objects of our web page of our application. The next solution which we have used is EBS. EBS is Elastic Block Store. It is a high performance block store service of AWS. It is mainly designed to be used with Elastic Compute and provides you storage service. Mainly, if you look at EBS volume types, there are two different classifications. One is SSD and the second one is hard disk drives. The SSD drive, or first let's start with the hard disk drive, are of two types. One is your ST1 and the second is your SC1. ST1 provides you the hard disk drives, and it is ideally suitable for frequently accessed data, which is it is a way to provide you low cost HDD volume, which is for frequent usage. And SC1 is mainly for hard disk drives which provide you the lowest cost per GB. Then comes solid state drives. These solid state drives are of two types. The first one is IO1. IO1 is a high performance EBS storage option, which is for transactional workloads, which are latency sensitive. And the second option is GP2. This is the general type of hard disk when we create our EBS volume type. And mainly it is used for boot volumes and low latency interactive applications. Then the next solution that we have looked at is CloudFront. CloudFront is your content delivery network, which provides you a flexibility in terms of hosting your objects. If you have users from around the world, you can make use of CloudFront to host the contents in such a way that all contents can be cached in Amazon's edge location, and the data can be delivered locally to the clients who are trying to access from different regions. So now that we have got a pretty basic idea of the various solutions that we are going to use, let's jump into writing a code for this specific solution. In order to deploy this specific solution, I have written a code which is almost 250 plus lines, but do not worry about that. If I can write it, you can write it as well. And the best part, is it is really very, very, very simple. The way that we write the code, it is exactly same as or similar as how you try to create the objects from GUI. The main benefit is you get the flexibility of deploying it and destroying it very easily at your will. So we'll go through this code and try to understand each and every part. So in order to deploy any configuration, we start with first defining the infrastructure where we plan to host our web servers. So in Terraform, we are going to define that in our provider resource block. So provider, at present, I am going to deploy it in AWS. And this region is the attribute with this is the key and this is the value. So simple or similar to how we are going to do it from, if you think of when we are planning to deploy any configuration, the first part what we do is from here we select the region. So for example, in my case, I have decided to deploy in Singapore. So AP Southeast 1. This is the exact same thing that you have to copy and paste it here. Now, the next part is I'm going to create my VPC. So in services, if you scroll down, let's search this VPC. In here, you will get an option for your VPC. So by default, Amazon gives you a default VPC. So if you do not want to deploy in that, you can create your custom network as well, which is what we are going to do. So if you click on create VPC, these are the different options like name tag, define a CIDR value, define the tenancy, and then just click on create. So in the same part, if I need to do it from Terraform, I'm just going to use a resource, and this is my AWS VPC. So always the name will start with AWS and underscore the various component that you are trying to deploy. In most cases, this will be exactly same. And then this is the name which you are defining within Terraform for it to maintain the details of that specific block. So this specific CIDR block, I am defining as CIDR underscore block. And the value I'm going to define is equal to double quotes and then the value, whatever value. And this name tag, I'm defining it like this. Names is equal to name and the name which I am giving, my VPC. So now my VPC is also created. After creating the VPC, then I'm going to define the segments. So I'm going to create my different subnets. So in this case, for example, let's say if I cancel this and if I click on subnets, by default, Amazon will be giving you the, 3 different subnets which will be part of your default VPC. So you can click on create, and again similar thing, resource AWS subnet underscore subnet. This is a name which I am giving from within the Terraform itself, and this is the name which will be created in my AWS configuration. So app underscore subnet is my subnet which is going to be created in my AWS account. Now, whenever you create a subnet, you also have to mention the VPC. So in here, this is your VPC ID. Every VPC has a unique ID. So in my previous step, I have already created a VPC. This is my code to create a VPC. But Terraform does not know, what is the ID of that VPC which is going to get created. So it will come to know only after the VPC is created. So for that, I'm going to call the value of that specific part. So for example, VPC ID, this is AWS underscore VPC. If you see here, this is the same exact resource type. So AWS underscore VPC, then dot my underscore VPC. This my underscore VPC is the name that I have given for Terraform to remember the code or remember that specific component. So always, if I have to define or call the specific resource from within our Terraform, I will be defining it as this resource type first dot this name. So in here, I'm going to define it as AWS underscore VPC dot my underscore VPC, and then after the VPC is get created, we come to know its ID. So dot ID. And within this subnet, the CIDR block is important. So CIDR block is equal to this should be the same from the same block what we have defined in our VPC. And now we want that whenever subnet is created, since this is my web subnet, so all instances which I'm going to launch it in this specific subnet needs to have a public IP assigned. So this is a setting which you can, from here, if you select this action, modify auto assignments, and just select this option. So this specific option is being controlled by attribute as map public IP on launch. This is not something that I have defined. It is provided in the code of Terraform itself by the provider. So you can always refer to a specific component on Terraform's website. If we go to Terraform's website, you can look at the various providers. Let's search Terraform providers. Say AWS. Then you will get different examples. So you can always refer to an example code which is provided on Terraform's documentation page. It is really, really good. So based on what we are trying to do, you can always see corresponding component, what needs to be called. But most of the time, what we are defining in our GUI will be exactly similar. Then I want to enable this. Now, I want this specific subnet has to be created only once the VPC is created. So that's why I have given a specific line as depends on, and then depends on what? My AWS VPC. So once the VPC is created, then this specific resource is going to be executed. So if you want to control the sequence in which the Terraform deploys your code, or if there is any dependency, you want to control that, then you can make use of this depends on feature. Now, we have defined our VPC, we have defined our subnet. The next part is defining your routing table. So again, for defining our routing table, it is AWS underscore route table. And then this is my name, which I've given for Terraform to maintain the routing table. And the name which will be created on my AWS account would be this name. And now, whenever you create a routing table, let's have a look here. Whenever you create a routing table, this has to be mapped with a VPC. So again, in here, I'm calling it as VPC ID, and then what is my VPC ID? So this will follow the same format: resource type and the name dot ID. Now, after a routing table is created, I have to associate the subnet with my routing instance. So for this, the component or type which is available is AWS route table association. So in here, if you see, let's say this is my routing table, you have an option for subnet association. We click on edit and then map the subnet. So similar to this, when I'm trying to do it via code, this is my resource type, and this exact details you will be able to get from the provider, Terraform provider documents. Then this is the name and subnet ID. Now I don't know the subnet ID, right? Because in here, where I'm trying to associate, I will have to mention the subnet name. So from GUI, it is very easy. So again, similar trick which I'll follow is subnet ID is equal to then AWS underscore subnet. Let's go back and have a look here. If we see, this is AWS subnet dot my app subnet. So this is the exact thing which I have written here: AWS subnet dot my app subnet dot ID. And similarly, this goes to the route table ID. This has to be associated with which route. So AWS route table dot the name what I have given here. See, my route table dot ID. So now my route table is also done. And after this, I want to have internet connectivity. So for that, I would need a internet gateway. So to define or create a internet gateway, this would be the resource type. So AWS underscore internet underscore gateway. And the name which I want to give it on my AWS account is this. And whenever you define an internet gateway or create an internet gateway, let's say, for example, in here, you create an internet gateway. This internet gateway always have to be attached. Let us say if I do this test, this always has to be attached to a VPC, so that all your systems which is part of this VPC will have connectivity towards your internet. So similar to this, I am going to define here the VPC ID, and VPC ID I'll come to know only from this specific part. And I am going, since this specific resource I want to be created only after the VPC is created. So I have defined this dependency using depends on. Now, whenever we create a route table, and after we have defined our internet gateway, we have to make sure that we also define or add a default route in our routing table. So which will be pointing to my internet gateway. So in here, this defines my route table ID. And how do I know the route table ID? Again, the same part. Trick is exactly same in the way that you write this code. And destination CIDR block is for which destination? For any destination, I need it to forward it to the gateway. So gateway ID is this ID. Now, this was my basic networking blocks which I have defined. Let's come to our defining our security. So when we are going to launch our web instance, we have to make sure that it is specific ports on the web server is open. For example, if I'm trying to host HTTP website, my port 80 has to be open. So that is wherein security group comes into picture. So in here, you can see on AWS, we are going to create a security group. This is the name which I've given for Terraform to manage it, and the name on my AWS is this. And whenever you are creating a security group, description is mandatory. And then this security group, you are going to associate with specific subnet or related to VPC. And then whenever you create a security group, you have to, let's say, for example, in here, we click on security group, create a security group. We have to choose a VPC, and we also have to define our inbound rules and outbound rules. So inbound is defined by ingress. Ingress is something which is coming from the outside world and going inside AWS network. So with respect to inbound, let us say if I click on add rule, I will get an option to define the port range, choose the specific protocol, choose the specific source. So in here, I also, the mainly how I'm going to define the port range is, I have to open the traffic for port 80. So in here, the port will be from port is equal to 80 and to port is equal to 80. And then source is, let's say in my example, I've opened it for everyone. But in actual production environment, it is always good to restrict unless you are trying to open it to the world. Maybe for example, SSH, you want for your administration purpose, you want to log into your instance. So in that case, port 22, I will not open for all. So like this, I can create multiple ingress as well as egress rules. So for example, here ingress, I have defined a rule for port 80, and then similar ingress, I have defined it for port 22. And egress rule, so make sure when you are trying to create your security policy, define this egress rule as well, so that the systems from your AWS instances that you are going to launch, they will have access to the internet world, so that they can respond back and you will be able to access the instance. If you don't do this, again, you might end up not being able to access the instance itself. So now that I have defined my security or the firewall as well on my AWS, before launching the instance, I would have to, since we know that when we launch an instance, we have to, for administrative purpose, we have to log into the instance. And for that, it will be asking for a key. So now to generate a key, I am going to use resource type of TLS. TLS is the provider which using which you can create your key. So TLS private key, then this is the name, and the algorithm which I'm using is RSA. Now after this key gets created, I need to make sure that the public key is also saved for me to be able to log in. So I'm just calling this in the app key instance. I'm going to create AWS key pair. I'm using the resource type, and from here the public key I'm saving it in TLS private key, the same resource type, dot this web dot key, and for this what should be the SSH public key. Now I want to save this a private key locally to my system. So then I'm going to use a resource provider as local. So using this local file, you can save the content of your private key locally, so that then you will be able to utilize that key and you will be able to log into the instance. And in here, so the content will be my private key contents. So again, I have created the key using TLS private key. So TLS private key, and then dot web key is the name, and this private key PEM is the attribute which you can see in terms of when you are trying to use TLS private key. If you go to the Terraform's website, you will get an example of this block as well. So the different attributes or arguments which are available, you can make use of. So I want to save the private key. So this private key, private underscore key underscore PEM. So the private key data is then stored in the PEM format. And I want to save this as web-key.pem on my local system. Now that we have prepared the networking part as well as defined how we are going to log into the instance, we have created the key, in order to secure, we have created our security policy. Now comes the part where I'm going to deploy the instance. So for deploying the instance, the resource type which you are going to use is AWS underscore instance. And then this is the name. And let's come back to in here. If we see, if you go to the compute section, is EC2, from where we usually launch the instances. Let's say from here, if I click on launch an instance, it will be providing me the different images. So in AWS, you have a set of AMIs. So each specific image has a unique AMID. So this is the AMID which I want to deploy or I want to use it as my web server. So we have to define this as your AMI instance. So AMI is equal to, then this is my AMI ID, which I'm going to use as my web server. And after I select this, let's say I've selected this, it will ask me what is the type that you want. So there are different types based on your requirement. You want how many vCPUs you want to use, how much memory you require. So for demo purpose, in this instance type, similar way, I have to define this as instance type, and I'm using t2.micro. This is my instance type. And this instance, I'm going to give it a name as web server 1. So that I have defined as tags equal to name and name equal to web server 1. I am going to launch one web server, so count is equal to 1. So if you click on next, it will ask you, how many number of instances you want. And then this specific instance you want to launch in with subnet. So that is what is defined by your subnet ID. But since I don't know the subnet ID now, so I can make use of the similar trick, AWS underscore subnet, which I have defined in my previous code, dot my app subnet, and then dot the ID. And always remember, whenever if you plan to utilize or to be able to log into the instance, you must attach a key. So in here, I'm going to use or attach the key which I have just created in my previous step. So key name is the same name which I have defined in my previous step. And then the security group which I'm going to associate with my specific instance would be the same security group. So since I can have multiple security groups attached, so I've defined this as a list in brackets. And then once the instance is launched, okay, I want to execute certain commands. So I don't want to, after the instance is launched, I don't want to log in into it manually and then run some commands. So for that, we use in Terraform, we use something called as provisioners. So provisioners can be your local provisioners or your remote provisioners. So provisioner, when you are trying to run a code on a remote web server, you want to run some commands on your remote web server. So that is when we use remote exec provisioner. And when you want to run a code on your local system itself, then we use local exec. So in this specific case, once the instance is launched, I want to execute some certain commands. So always remember, the provisioner instance, a provisioner part or the component has to be defined under a resource block itself. So in here, I have defined provisioner remote exec. And whenever you are defining this, you need to make sure that you are also defining the connection parameters, how you are trying to connect, what is the user ID, how it is getting authenticated, which is the remote server IP address. So in here, I have defined the connection type as within connection, the type as SSH, user as the EC2-user, and private key is for authentication, and then host is with specific host. So in order to define the host, again, I am going to use AWS underscore instance. And then if you see here, AWS underscore instance dot web, this is the same part which I've used here. And the main reason of mentioning this 0 is because of the count that I have mentioned. You can have within this, you can have multiple instances launched. So the first instance that is launched is referred to as 0, web 0. The second instance will be referred as web 1. The third instance will be referred as web 2. And whenever this instance is launched, it will have a parameter called as public underscore IP. So that is what will be used to log into this instance. Okay. And then I'm going to define what is the command that I'm going to run. So that is going to be defined in your inline part. So sudo yum install httpd php git, and without asking for confirmation. So I'm just giving the confirmation in the command itself. So this will install the httpd service on my web server instance after it is launched, and I want to start the HTTP service after installation. So I'll enable this, and I want to make sure that every time the system, even if it restarts, the HTTPD is enabled. So I'll run this specific command. Now, with this, my web instance is up and running. Now, I know that my codes, which I'm going to deploy in my instance, will be in a certain location, and that location is very critical for me. So I want to save that data. So if I want to save that data, I am going to create a EBS volume, and that volume I'm going to attach with my instance by mounting it to that specific location. So any data which on the instance, if I save it on, let's say for in my case, if the important part is var www.html /html, that is where all my codes are located. So I want to attach that to my volume. So even before I attach it, I first have to create a EBS volume. So for example, let's say if in here we can see a block option as Elastic Block Store volumes, and click on create volume. So once you create volume, you can see this is the default volume type. You can even choose a different option from the volume type and then define the size. So this resource block is helping me create a block storage. The name which I've given is my EBS1, and in which availability zone I want to launch this in. So I want to make sure that this specific instance is in the same availability zone in which my instance is present. So that's why in the availability zone section, I have defined it in this way. This availability zone is part of a specific keyword when my instance is deployed. And after this, I've defined the size. I need it for 1 GB. And the tags is, I'm giving it a name as EBS VOL. Now, once my volume is created, I have to attach this specific volume to my instance. So for this, the resource instance that I'm using is AWS volume attachment. And then this is your attach underscore EBS. This is the name, which is for Terraform. And this volume, in order for me to be able to attach the volume, first it has to be created, right? So the same concept, there is a dependency. So I want to make sure that this is executed after my volume is created. So for this, AWS EBS volume dot my EBS. So it depends on this specific block, AWS EBS volume dot my EBS one. And then this, for the attachment, I'm going to define it a device name, and then the volume ID I'll come to know only once it is created, and instance ID to which I have to attach. So AWS instance dot web0.id. And if I want to later detach it forcefully, so force detach, I'm choosing it as true. Now, we can make use of null resource block as well if I need to execute certain commands, and they cannot be just defined anywhere in my Terraform code. So I have to create or run certain commands in my null resource block. So this is mainly for mounting. So whenever the volume is attached, the volume volume store which we created is attached to our instance. So I have to format it. So in order to format it, first I have to log into that instance. So that is again defined in my connection parameter. This is similar to how we executed it in the previous section. And then after connecting to it, I want to execute certain commands. So I'm going to use the provisioner component, which is for remote exec, because I'm going to run the commands on a remote instance. So this is going to format the drive in the type of extension 4. This is the volume name. And then this I'm going to mount where. This is my important location, where www.html, where all my codes are going to be stored. So for after mounting it, I'll just do the cleanup. And after cleanup, then I will copy my code, which is present. The developers who have written the code, they have deployed it in GitHub repo. So I can clone that using sudo git clone and then specifying the path of the git repo. After this, now I have a specific certain specific components within my codes which are static and do not change. So I want to make use of storage, object storage. So for this, I am going to, this locals block is just going to define it a specific parameter, which I can again recall it in my different parts of my code. So now I'm going to create a S3 instance or S3 bucket. So for example, from here, if you go to storage and click on S3, it is giving you an option to create a bucket. So whenever you plan to store or upload any specific components within your S3, so those components have to be part of a bucket. So first we have to create a bucket. So in order to create a bucket, I have to define, I am using this specific block, AWS S3 bucket. And then this is a unique name which I am going to define. So let's say, for example, when you click on create, it is asking for a bucket name. So this bucket name has to be unique across the globe. Nobody else should have the same name. Otherwise, it will give you an error. And then which region you want to deploy it in. So this is my AWS Singapore region where I want to deploy it. And for ACL, I'm going to define it as a public read write. And then when you define this, in the next page, there will be an option to enable the versioning. So I want the versioning to be enabled, which means different versions of the specific objects can be placed in the same place and is not being deleted. So I want that versioning to be enabled. And then a name which I've given it as, added a tag, name as this, environment as prod. Now, once this specific bucket is created, I want to, get a copy of the GitHub repo. So I am using my provisioner local exec, and I'm running this specific command on my local instance to get my code locally. And after this, now I'm going to change the public access, give public access to my bucket. So, and this specific resource block I'm going to use to make sure that the access level for that specific bucket is public. The block, by default, the block specific ACL is defined as false, and the block public policy is also false. And this you can do only once the bucket is created. So I've defined this as depends on the previous bucket creation part. Now, once this bucket is created, I have to upload the object to this S3 bucket. So for this, I'm using a resource type as AWS S3 bucket object. And all this information, if you're thinking how will you remember all these different resource types, the simple answer is you don't have to. These resource types are all defined, all provided on Terraform's website. You just need to know how to implement the technology. And if you just try to find out this specific information, you will get it. For example, if I just copy this part and look here, the first URL most of the time that you will get will be for this specific resource. Now, if you just type in AWS S3 bucket object, you will get the similar result, and it will be providing you the different options. Okay, in order to make use of this block, how can you write it? So you can always, refer to these documentations, which are pretty good. So now, for defining or uploading my object, I've defined it as object 1 in terms of the Terraform code instance. And this depends on first my creation of the bucket itself. So that part I have covered in depends on, and then bucket, in which bucket I want to upload my object. So this is my bucket name. This is the same name which I've given in my bucket creation block. And the ACL should be public read write. And key defines is what specific image that I'm planning to upload. So this specific image is present in my GitHub repository. And then what is the source? So when I have written this specific or copied the Git repo, I've given it a name as web server image on my local system. So within this block or within this folder, it is this specific image which I have to upload it. And then I have to make sure I am using a CloudFront distribution because of this application being accessed from various regions. So in here, if you look at, this is the block for CloudFront distribution. This is the name for Terraform. And again, this I have to, the CloudFront distribution I have to create only once my object is created in the S3 bucket. So that's why I've given it as depends on the S3 bucket object 1. And whenever you create a CloudFront distribution, it will be asking, okay, what is the source? What is the domain name? So you can make use of CloudFront and the exact data from where the data is coming in, which is the source of information. So you can call that in your origin ID. So local dot S3 origin ID. This is the name which I have defined earlier. Now, okay, let's see. For example, let me just cancel this. In here, if you search for CloudFront, this is mainly for content delivery network. You can create your distribution. It will be asking for the origin domain name from where the information is coming up. What is the path? And then it will be asking, the various options to define your cache parameters, which are the allowed methods, which are what is the exact target. So default cache behavior, which are the different methods which are allowed. The caching methods are which methods are for caching. Then you can define if cookies have to be enabled. You can define your viewer policy. You can define for how long you want the data to be stored in your CDN, the CloudFront distribution that you are going to create, for how long you want it to store. So this denotes 1 hour and maximum is 24 hours. And I don't want to put any geo restrictions. So in terms of restrictions, I've defined it as none. And whenever the CloudFront is created, you are creating a CloudFront, it will be asking you for, if we see here, the certificate. You can make use of the CloudFront certificate, as well as you can upload your custom certificate as well. So in my case, I've used it as viewer certificate as CloudFront default certificate, which I want it to be true. Now, I have deployed the code in my AWS instance. I have copied the code as well. The code refers to an image. That image is stored on S3, and that S3 has to be accessed via the CloudFront part. So the object has to be served from CloudFront so that the latency is less. That is the whole purpose of deploying this infra. So for example, after this CloudFront distribution is created, so in here, I can make use of null resource, again, to run some specific commands, because the provisioner always have to be inside a resource block. So what this is doing is, it is writing an image. The URL, once the CloudFront is created, that URL has to be uploaded or updated in my code, which is deployed on my AWS instance. So with this, I've defined here the connection parameters and provisioner remote exec, where I've defined what has to be updated. So this command will basically, update the image source in my code, defining the value or the URL of my CloudFront. So my CloudFront is AWS CloudFront underscore distribution dot terra.cloudfront1. This is my CloudFront name. If you see here, terra.cloudfront1. This is the name. And then I'm defining the domain name. And this is my object, which is being served. So, and this is going to be updated in my var www.html index.html file as my last line. And after this, I'm just closing off the HTML part. And once, so basically we have deployed the different parts of our infrastructure. Now we have written the code for all of these. Then at last, I want to see the result. So again, I've defined a resource null block, which again depends on null mount. So this null resource dot null mount is after the mounting part is successful. So I want to know, okay, what is the website? So provisioner local exec is for executing the code locally. So on my local system, it will display an output that the website has been deployed successfully, and the result will be stored in a file as result.txt. And I will also get the IP address of my website. So in order to read the IP address of my website, again, this is the code or the way in which I can read the IP address. So AWS underscore instance dot web, and 0 is for the first instance, and dot public IP. And after this, finally, as my last part, I want to automatically let Terraform execute and open up a browser and try to access that URL. So, which is again a specific command for, so local exec and start Chrome. This will start Chrome browser on my system and will try to access the instance of my public IP, the public IP of my instance. So with this, now you are all set. We know the different ways, and it is quite simple. It only looks to be 250 lines, but if I can do it, definitely you can also do it, and you must do it. So now that we have understood the different aspects or different components of this specific code, let's go ahead and deploy it. So now in order to deploy it first, at present, if you see, I am inside my project one folder, and this is my demo1.tf file. So always, whatever code that you have written, we need to always save that with the extension as .tf. You can give the code file any name that you want. So after my code is ready, okay, let's say I plan to see what this code will do. So if I do Terraform plan, that will show me the different changes that Terraform code will bring in my infrastructure. So let's try this. Once you run this Terraform code with Terraform plan, it will give you an error saying you are using different providers, provider null. There is no suitable version installed. You are using provider AWS. You are using provider local. In our code, you have seen, right? We have used different specific providers. So like this, you see null. Null is a provider. AWS we have defined as in the first step itself. That is a provider. Local is a provider. We have used TLS provider to generate a key. That is a provider. So those codes have to be installed first. So those plugins have to be installed first so that Terraform knows how to connect to it. So in order to do that, first we always start with Terraform init. This will initialize our configuration. So now you can see, it is checking for available provider plugins and trying to download the plugins, AWS, TLS, local, and all these plugins are downloaded and installed successfully. And now if you see in the left side, you will see an extra block which got created, which was not present earlier. This block will be having my different provider configurations. You can see the different providers configurations will be present here. This will not be present unless you initialize your configuration. Okay, so now that we have initialized our configuration, let's move over to the next step, which is Terraform plan. So with Terraform plan, I will get an idea of what are the various components that are going to be deployed in my infrastructure. And now if you see closely in the left side, it has created, a Terraform state file, which basically lets Terraform know, okay, the different components that are going to be deployed and what will be those components. So in here, it is showing me that 21 resources are going to be added. So with this, let's try to implement this. So in order to implement it, I will use Terraform apply. And whenever I do Terraform apply, it will again ask me for confirmation. Apply is like a way of implementing what we have written as a code. So now I'm going to do Terraform apply. Once I do Terraform apply, it is asking again me the confirmation that do you really want to perform this option. We have an option to skip this part as well. So I could have run this in a different way such that it will not ask me for this confirmation again. So for now, since I've already run it, I'll just click on yes. So which is a way for me to approve this. And now if you see, it has created a key file. This key file was not present earlier. So it has created a key file and copied the contents here. It has copied the web server image from a GitHub. It has created a Terraform a TF state file, and it is trying to deploy the various components which are part of my application. So it is now trying to deploy the AWS configuration. If we have a look at, in here, if we go to, let's say, let's start with VPC. So you will see it created a VPC with the name as my VPC. This was not there earlier. Then it created an app subnet. This was also not present earlier. It created a route table. Then it created a gateway, internet gateway. If we go to EC2, you can see if I go to the instances section, it has also created a web server instance, and this is currently initializing. This is my web server. So I do not have to do all this part manually. Everything is automatic. I've just written this code. I've spent time in writing this code. I can make use of this code to deploy n number of environments. But think of doing this from traditional approach perspective. If somebody asks you to create 10 web servers, and if you have to do it from scratch manually, think of the efforts that it takes. And the effort that it takes to write the code is just your one-time effort. And then you can always improvise your code. And then if we see it, We go to S3. No, it has also created a bucket for me. If I go to CloudFront, it has created a CloudFront object as well as for me, and there you go, bingo. My website is launched successfully, and I have deployed my application without even touching anything, any specific component. I did not have to do manually. My website is deployed and trial and tested right in front of you. And that's the power of Terraform. I hope you found this informative and you can make use of it in your environment as well. Thank you for watching.